What is life? It sounds like such a fundamental question, doesn't it?
It really does.
Something so universally present, yet when you really stop and think about it, it's incredibly complex. So today on The Deep Dive, we're plunging into one of humanity's oldest, most profound questions. What is life?
Big one.
Our mission is really to cut through that complexity. We're pulling out the most important insights from a vast and detailed source to give you a truly comprehensive understanding of this astonishing phenomenon.
Yeah, it's a concept far more intricate than most probably realize.
Exactly. And I'm really eager to unpack its many layers with you.
Well, it's an incredibly tough challenge, really, trying to nail down something so fluid, so constantly changing.
Right.
The sheer multitude of perspectives. You've got biology, philosophy, even physics weighing in. It makes it a truly fascinating, if elusive subject to explore.
Definitely more to it than first meets the eye.
For sure.
Okay, let's unpack this right away then. Why is defining life so challenging? I mean, we all feel like we know what life is, but apparently it's just not that simple.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But the material we've looked at highlights that over 123 definitions of life have been compiled.
Wow, 123.
Yeah. And the core reason, really, is that life is largely understood as a process, not a fixed substance.
Okay.
It's less about what life is, maybe, and more about what it does.
Ah, I see.
And this challenge only gets bigger when you start thinking about, say, potential extraterrestrial life.
Right, which might operate on totally different principles.
Exactly. Different chemistry, different rules altogether, maybe.
That distinction between process and substance,
Yeah.
that's a powerful insight right there.
Okay.
So if it's about what life does, the research brings up something called the 7 pillars of life. These are descriptive traits, yeah?
Generally accepted descriptive traits.
What are those? And, I mean, are they ever seriously debated?
Well, they provide a good working framework. First, you've got homeostasis. This is basically about self-regulation.
Like keeping things stable inside.
Exactly. Think of your body sweating to cool down or shivering to warm up. It's maintaining that stable internal environment.
Got it. What's second?
Second is organization. All living things are structured, made of one or more cells, the fundamental building blocks.
Okay, cells. Makes sense.
Third, metabolism. This is how living things transform energy, converting food into fuel, building up parts, breaking down waste.
Constant chemical activity.
That's it. They're constantly in motion, chemically speaking.
All right, so that's 3. What are the other 4 pillars?
Okay, next up is growth. Basically, an organism builds itself up faster than it breaks itself down. A sapling becoming a tree is the classic example.
Right.
Then, adaptation. This is the evolutionary piece, where organisms gradually become better suited to their environment over generations.
Evolution in action.
Yep. Then we have response to stimuli, like a plant's leaves turning toward the sun or, you jerking your hand away from something hot.
A reaction to the environment.
Exactly. And finally, number 7, reproduction. The ability to create new individual organisms. Could be a single cell dividing or 2 parents producing offspring.
Okay.
So together, these 7 points give us a pretty robust framework for observation, even if, that single perfect definition remains elusive.
Those are definitely clear biological markers. But what about other perspectives? You mentioned physics earlier. How does physics look at life? What's the core idea there?
Right. From a physics perspective, it gets interesting. Life can be described as a thermodynamic open system.
Okay.
It uses energy differences, gradients in its surroundings to create imperfect copies of itself. Think of it like a self-sustaining whirlpool using the river's flow.
Huh. That's a neat analogy.
And Carl Sagan, along with the NASA committee, famously put it as a self-sustained chemical system capable of undergoing Darwinian evolution.
So a system that keeps itself going and can change over time through natural selection. That's the Darwinian evolution part, right?
Precisely.
But I noticed the source mentioned a critique of that specific definition. What's the issue there?
Yeah, the critique is that under that definition, a single individual from a species that reproduces sexually, well, it wouldn't technically be considered alive on its own.
Because it can't evolve by itself.
Exactly. It needs a population to evolve. So it just highlights how tricky these definitions get when you push them to the edges.
Yeah, finding one rule that fits everything is tough. And then there's living systems theory. What angle does that bring?
This view really emphasizes that living things are self-organizing. They build themselves and autopoietic, which is a fancy way of saying self-producing.
Self-producing.
Yeah. Stuart Kaufman took this further. defining life as an autonomous agent, or maybe a system of agents that can reproduce itself and complete at least one thermodynamic work cycle.
Meaning it uses energy to do something useful.
Right, it uses energy, does work, cycles that energy, like a tiny engine. What's really fascinating here is the focus on this multi-scale hierarchical organization.
From tiny molecules all the way up.
All the way up to the entire biosphere. It really emphasizes how interconnected everything is.
Now, one of the biggest challenges to these definitions, it always seems to come back to viruses. They seem to break all the rules. Are they alive or not?
Viruses. Yeah, the controversy is absolutely ongoing. The sources often describe them as organisms at the edge of life.
Edge of life. I like that.
They definitely have genes, right? They evolve through natural selection. They can self-assemble. They replicate. But, and it's a big but, they can only do that inside host cells. They crucially lack their own metabolism. They don't produce their own energy or build their own proteins from scratch. They hijack the host's machinery.
So they tick some boxes, but miss a really big one.
Exactly. And their unique nature has some pretty big implications for how we think about the origin of life itself. Maybe life started as something simpler, like self-assembling molecules before cells.
They really do stretch our definitions, existing in this like fascinating gray area.
Totally.
And if we're talking about processes ending, the material also touches on death. It's the termination of life, sure, but it's not as simple as just flipping an off switch, is it?
No, not at all. Death is defined as, the termination of all vital functions or life processes. But defining the exact moment is surprisingly complex because the cessation of life functions often isn't simultaneous across all the different organ systems.
So one part might stop before another.
Precisely. It's often more of a gradual process, a continuum, rather than a single precise point in time.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Okay, so we've seen the modern challenge of defining life, but how have people grappled with this question throughout history? Let's step back in time a bit. What about early materialism?
Right, the early materialists. They basically believe that everything, including life, is just complex arrangements of matter, no special sauce needed.
Okay.
Empedocles, way back around 430 BC, thought all life was formed from just 4 eternal elements: earth, water, air, and fire.
The classics.
Yep. And then Democritus, the atomist guy, took a step further. He believed the soul, the psyche, was actually made of fiery atoms, directly connecting life to heat and movement.
Wow, so a very physical view, even back then.
Very physical, which contrasts really sharply with someone like Plato, who believed in these permanent, abstract forms that organized the world, with matter just being an imperfect reflection.
Two very different ways of looking at it.
Yeah.
And that mechanistic, materialist view that really gained traction later on, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. René Descartes in the 17th century famously viewed animals and even human bodies as intricate machines.
The body as a machine.
Exactly. And Leibniz extended this, calling living bodies machines of nature right down to their smallest parts. Then there was Julien Offray de la Mettrie's book, L'Homme Machine, literally Man a Machine, which really pushed that idea.
And Darwin fits in here, too.
Definitely. Darwin's evolutionary theory provided a powerful mechanistic explanation for the origin of species through natural selection. It showed how complexity could arise without any, supernatural guidance.
Right, just natural processes.
Even into the early 20th century, people like Stephen Leduc were exploring how biological processes could be understood through physics and chemistry. He suggested life's growth was similar to inorganic crystal formation, an idea that's actually seeing some renewed interest now.
That's really fascinating. A long history of trying to explain life purely through physical means. But then we have Aristotle, who had a totally different take with his theory of hylomorphism. How did he see things?
Aristotle's view was quite different. He proposed that living things have both matter and form, and that form is their soul, or psyche.
So the soul isn't separate?
No, it's the organizing principle of the matter. He outlined 3 kinds of souls. There's the vegetative soul for plants, allows growth, decay, getting nutrients, but no movement on their own. Then the animal soul, which added movement and sensation.
Right.
And finally, the rational soul, which he saw as exclusive to humans, the source of consciousness and reasoning.
And each level includes the ones below it.
Exactly. The animal soul has vegetative functions. The rational soul has animal and vegetative functions. But crucially, Aristotle believed the soul couldn't exist without the body. They were integrated.
That's really different from later ideas of souls leaving bodies.
Yeah.
How did Aristotle's view hold up against later science?
Well, Aristotle often used teleological explanations explaining things by their purpose, like a polar bear's white coat is for camouflage.
Explaining the why.
Right. But that direction of causality from a future purpose causing something now directly contradicts modern scientific understanding, especially natural selection.
Because natural selection works on past variations.
Precisely. Science fundamentally shifted to asking how things work based on prior causes, not why they exist in a teleological sense.
So as science moved forward, it started knocking down some of these older ideas. Two big ones were spontaneous generation and vitalism. Can you remind us what those were?
Sure. Spontaneous generation was this really long-held belief that living organisms could just appear from inanimate matter.
Like flies from meat or mice from dirty rags.
Exactly. Fleas from dust, mice from mud. Aristotle actually promoted this idea, and people bought it for millennia. Until Louis Pasteur decisively disproved it in 1859 with his brilliant swan neck flask experiments. Building on earlier work by Francesco Redi, he showed that life only comes from pre-existing life. Omni vivum ex vivo.
A huge turning point for biology.
Yeah.
And vitalism. What was that about?
Vitalism was the idea that there was some kind of non-material life principle or vital force distinct from ordinary physical and chemical forces that was essential for life.
It's a special spark.
Kind of, yeah. Georg Ernst Stahl popularized it in the 17th century. It also included the idea that organic matter was fundamentally different from inorganic matter and could only be made by living things.
And how did that fall apart?
That was completely disproven in 1828. Friedrich Wöhler managed to synthesize urea, which is definitely an organic compound found in urine from purely inorganic materials in his lab.
Synthesizing organic from inorganic.
Exactly. It was a massive blow to vitalism and basically marked the start of modern organic chemistry. Later, Hermann von Helmholtz showed that muscles conserved energy just like any physical system, further discrediting the need for any mysterious vital forces.
So life can be explained by chemistry and physics after all.
That was the direction things were firmly heading.
Okay, so with those old ideas cleared away, what does this all mean for life's actual story here on Earth? Let's shift to the development of life itself. How old is our planet, and when did life first show up?
Right. Earth is about 4.54 billion years old, and life as we know it has been around for at least 3.5 billion years.
That's a long time.
An incredibly long time. We have solid physical traces like biogenic graphite in Greenland rocks and microbial mat fossils in Australia that date back about 3.7 billion years.
And you mentioned there are even earlier, almost unbelievable hints.
Yes, it's quite incredible. There are these putative meaning, thought to be, but not 100% confirmed microfossils from Quebec, Canada, dated to 4.28 billion years ago.
4.28 billion. That's almost right after the oceans formed.
Exactly. Oceans formed maybe 4.4 billion years ago. It suggests, potentially, an almost instantaneous emergence of life, once conditions allowed.
Wow.
And it all points back to this concept of a last universal common ancestor, LECA. Scientists have even tentatively identified about 355 genes that seem to be shared by all known life forms today.
A shared genetic heritage from LECA.
A direct echo from that common ancestor.
That's a really profound thought. And from LECA, we get all this incredible diversity through evolution. Can you give us the quick definition again and the core mechanism?
Sure. Evolution is simply the change in heritable characteristics. Things passed down genetically in biological populations over successive generations.
Leading to new species.
Leading to new species. And also the disappearance of old ones' extinction. It happens primarily through processes like natural selection.
Survival of the fittest, basically.
Sort of, but it's more about reproductive success. Certain traits help organisms survive and reproduce better in a particular environment. That, plus random genetic drift acting on the variation already present in a population, that's what drives evolution and generates all the amazing biodiversity we see.
And our best window into this incredibly deep history often comes from fossils, right?
Indeed. Fossils are the preserved remains or traces of organisms from the remote past. Usually we think of things older than, say, 10,000 years.
That's the arbitrary cutoff.
Yeah, it's somewhat arbitrary, but the fossil record itself goes way, way back into the Archean eon, with some specimens potentially up to 3.4 billion years old. They offer a direct glimpse into ancient life.
Which brings us to the flip side of evolution creating new species. Extinction. You said evolution gives us diversity, but clearly not every species makes it.
No, definitely not. Extinction is the ultimate fate of, well, the vast majority of species. Over 99% of all species that have ever lived are now extinct.
99%? That's staggering.
It really is. Extinction is the process where an entire species dies out, usually marked by the death of the last individual. It's hard to pinpoint the exact moment, so it's often determined later.
And why does it happen?
Usually because a species just can't adapt quickly enough. Maybe the habitat changes too fast, a new disease pops up, or they face intense competition from another species.
But the source mentioned something surprising about mass extinctions.
Right. This is fascinating. While mass extinctions are obviously catastrophic events, wiping out huge percentages of life, they might have actually accelerated evolution in the long run.
By clearing the board.
Exactly. By wiping the slate clean, they create new ecological opportunities, empty niches, allowing completely new groups of organisms to diversify and thrive in ways they couldn't before. It shows this incredible resilience and capacity for transformation, even after huge upheavals.
Destruction fueling creation. That is a powerful thought. And part of life's incredible resilience comes from this constant interplay it has with its environment, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a constant dance.
Our sources talk about the biosphere's vastness. Where can life actually be found on Earth? Sometimes in really unexpected places, right?
Oh, absolutely everywhere. The biosphere is essentially the global sum of all ecosystems, the self-regulating zone of life, and life pushes the boundaries.
Like how deep or how high?
We're talking deep underground evidence suggests life at least 19 kilometers down. And surprisingly high in the atmosphere, Aspergillus niger spores found 64 kilometers up.
64 kilometers.
Yep. Microbes have survived in the vacuum of space under test conditions. They thrive in the deepest ocean trenches, like the Mariana Trench. They live 800 meters below the ice in Antarctica.
Under the ice.
Uh-huh. And microbial communities have been found cooking in 120 degrees C sediment over a kilometer below the seafloor.
That's unbelievable.
As one researcher put it, you can find microbes everywhere. They're extremely adaptable and survive wherever they are.
So how do they manage that? The sources mention a range of tolerance. How does that work?
Right. Every organism has a specific range of conditions, temperature, light, acidity, whatever, where it does best, its optimal zone.
Okay.
Outside that, you have zones of physiological stress where it can survive, but it's tough going.
Not ideal.
Not ideal. And then beyond that, you hit the zones of intolerance where it just can't survive. Organisms with a wider range of tolerance, often microbes, can live in more places, including those extreme ones.
Which sounds like a perfect lead-in to extremophiles. These are the real tough guys.
Yeah. They really are. Extremophiles are microorganisms, mostly, that have evolved incredible adaptations to withstand and often thrive in extreme conditions.
Like what kind of extremes?
We're talking intense, cold, total dryness, starvation, crushing pressure, high acidity, even incredibly high levels of radiation.
Radiation.
Yeah, there's a bacterium called Deinococcus radiodurans that can resist radiation doses that would kill almost anything else. These organisms often use really uncommon energy sources, too. Studying them is a super exciting field right now.
It sounds like it. And on a much bigger scale, the material highlights how one particular type of organism, cyanobacteria, completely changed Earth's environment. How did they manage that?
Cyanobacteria. They were truly revolutionary. Billions of years ago, they figured out photosynthesis, and as a byproduct, they started pumping out molecular oxygen.
Oxygen, which wasn't around before.
Not in large amounts in the atmosphere, and back then, oxygen was actually toxic to most existing life forms.
So they poisoned the planet for everyone else?
In a way, yes. This great oxidation event caused a massive environmental shift, a huge evolutionary challenge. But ultimately, it fundamentally altered the planet's chemistry and paved the way for the evolution of complex life, including the major animal and plant species we see today. It's a prime example of life dramatically shaping its own environment.
Wow. Okay, so with all this incredible mind-boggling diversity shaped by evolution and environment, how do we even begin to make sense of it all? How do we classify the living world? Aristotle made an early attempt, didn't he?
He certainly did. Aristotle made the first known formal classification. He basically grouped living things as either plants or animals, mostly based on whether they could move.
Simple enough.
And he went further, dividing animals into those with blood and those without blood, which, remarkably, kind of aligns with our modern vertebrate and vertebrate distinction.
That's pretty good for 2,000 plus years ago.
Not bad at all. He then broke those down into 5 groups each. His system, though basic by our standards, was the dominant one for over 1,000 years.
Until Linnaeus came along in the 18th century and revolutionized things.
He really did. Carl Linnaeus introduced his system of binomial nomenclature, giving every species two names, genus and species, in the late 1740s. Like Homo sapiens for us.
Bringing clarity and precision.
Exactly. And his system has evolved hugely since then as our understanding grew. For example, fungi were originally lumped in with plants.
But they're not plants.
Not at all. Evolutionary studies showed they're actually more closely related to animals, so they got their own kingdom.
Right.
And prokaryotes, the simple cells without a nucleus, used to be one kingdom. But then we discovered they split into two profoundly different groups, bacteria and archaea.
Leading to the three-domain system.
Exactly. Bacteria, archaea, and eukarya, which includes us, plants, fungi, etc. This system is based on deep evolutionary relationships, though honestly, eukaryote classification is still pretty debated as we get more genetic data.
And how has modern tech, like metagenomics, shaken things up?
Metagenomics, the ability to just sequence all the DNA in an environmental sample, like soil or seawater, has given biologists this incredible metagenomic view of the whole tree of life.
And what did that reveal?
Two huge things, really. First, the overwhelming majority of living things on Earth, by diversity and sheer numbers, are actually bacteria.
We're vastly outnumbered by microbes.
By a long shot. And second, this massive amount of genomic data has powerfully confirmed the common origin for all life on Earth. It all traces back to that last universal common ancestor, LUCA.
That's a truly humbling and unifying thought.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift focus now down to the very building blocks. What are the core chemical elements that make up life?
Right, the absolute essentials. All life needs certain core chemical elements for its basic biochemistry. These are carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur.
Often remembered by the acronym CHNOPS.
Exactly, CHNOPS. These elements make up the nucleic acids, like DNA, proteins, and lipids, the fats and oils that form the bulk of living matter. 5 of them are in DNA itself, and sulfur is crucial for some important amino acids and proteins.
And carbon seems especially key.
Carbon is uniquely crucial. Its ability to form multiple stable covalent bonds with itself and other elements allows for the incredible variety and complexity of organic molecules that life depends on. It's the backbone element.
And speaking of nucleic acids, DNA, often called the blueprint of life. What makes it so fundamental? How does it work?
DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, it's the molecule carrying most of the genetic instructions. For growth, development, functioning, reproduction, pretty much everything in all known living organisms, and many viruses, too.
The famous double helix.
That's the one. It's made of units called nucleotides. Cytosine C, guanine G, adenine A, and thymine T. The real genius is the base pairing rule. A always pairs with T, and C always pairs with G.
Like a code?
Exactly. And this precise pairing means each strand contains the information to perfectly recreate the other strand. That's how genetic information is preserved so faithfully during replication when cells divide.
And inside cells, DNA is organized into
Long structures called chromosomes.
Okay, so DNA is housed within cells. And the material calls cells the basic unit of life. What's the core idea of cell theory?
Right. Cell theory is fundamental. It states that cells are the basic structural and functional unit of every living thing. And critically, all cells arise from pre-existing cells through division, no spontaneous generation of cells.
When did that become accepted?
It really solidified in the early 19th century. It's a cornerstone of modern biology. And we generally distinguish between two main types of cells, reflecting a huge evolutionary split.
Prokaryotes and eukaryotes.
Exactly. Prokaryote cells like bacteria and archaea are generally simpler, smaller. They lack a distinct nucleus to hold their DNA, and they don't have other internal compartments wrapped in membranes. Their DNA is usually a single circular loop.
And eukaryotes.
Eukaryote cells are more complex, usually larger. They have a distinct nucleus containing their DNA, which is organized into multiple linear chromosomes. They also have various membrane-bound organelles like mitochondria for energy, chloroplasts for photosynthesis in plants, each doing specialized jobs.
And that includes us.
Yes, all large, complex organisms, animals, plants, fungi, are eukaryotes. Though there's also a huge diversity of single-celled eukaryotes, the protists. The evolution of the eukaryotic cell was a massive leap in complexity.
How do these different cell types reproduce themselves?
Prokaryotes typically use a simpler process called binary fission. The DNA replicates, and the cell essentially just splits in two, making two generally identical daughter cells.
Quick and efficient.
Very. Eukaryotes use a more complex process called mitosis for normal cell division, also usually resulting in identical daughter cells for growth and repair.
And sexual reproduction.
That involves a different process called meiosis, which shuffles genes around. It's believed to have evolved quite early in eukaryotes and is a major driver of genetic variation, which fuels evolution.
Okay, and finally, at this structural level, how do we get from single cells, even complex eukaryotic ones, to creatures like us? Multicellular organisms with specialized parts.
That's another huge evolutionary step. Multicellular organisms likely started as colonies of identical cells, maybe just sticking together after dividing.
And full colonies.
Initially, yeah. Cells in these early colonies could probably still survive on their own if separated. But in true multicellular organisms, cells started to specialize.
Like becoming skin cells or muscle cells.
Exactly. They took on specific roles and became interdependent. They couldn't survive alone anymore, but the whole organism became much more efficient and capable of complex functions.
Do we know how that happened?
The source mentions one intriguing possibility. A minor genetic change in a single enzyme called GKPID, maybe around 800 million years ago, might have been a key step enabling cells to stick together and communicate in the ways needed for true multicellularity.
Wow, potentially one small change leading to massive complexity.
It often works that way in evolution, and developing sophisticated cell signaling, ways for cells to talk to each other and coordinate, and eventually nervous systems in animals, that was crucial for managing these complex bodies.
Okay, let's connect all this to the really big picture now. What about life beyond Earth? Is extraterrestrial life actually considered probable in scientific circles these days?
Yes, I'd say increasingly so. Many scientists consider it not just plausible, but highly probable, maybe even inevitable, just given the sheer scale of the universe. Billions of galaxies, each with billions of stars.
So where are we looking?
There's an active search within our own solar system. Places like the subsurface ocean suspected on Jupiter's moon Europa or Saturn's moon Enceladus. Even the possibility of ancient or maybe even current microbial life on Mars.
Below the surface, perhaps.
Exactly. Or maybe in the clouds of Venus. And then you have projects like SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, listening for radio signals from potential alien civilizations farther out.
And does understanding life on Earth help that search? Like the extremophiles you mentioned.
Immensely. Understanding Earth's extremophiles' life thriving in harsh conditions really broadens our perspective on where life might exist and what forms it could take. Alien life might not resemble Earth life at all. It could use different chemistry, thrive in conditions we consider impossible.
So what factors make a planet or a star system more likely to host life? What are scientists looking for out there?
Well, a key concept is the habitable zone around a star. That's the region where temperatures could potentially allow liquid water to exist on a planet's surface.
The Goldilocks zone.
Exactly. Not too hot, not too cold. The size and duration of this zone depend on the star's mass and brightness. Stars like our sun, sort of middle of the road, are often considered good candidates for Earth-like life.
Does location within the galaxy matter too?
It seems to. Regions with a higher abundance of heavier elements needed to form rocky planets are generally better. But you also don't want to be in an area with too many supernovae going off, as the radiation could sterilize planets. So there's maybe a galactic habitable zone too.
Try and weigh all these factors.
People try. There's the famous Drake equation, which attempts to estimate the number of communicative civilizations in our galaxy. And more recently, a proposed confidence of life detection scale, COL-D, to help scientists report evidence of life beyond Earth in a standardized way.
Okay, so we're searching for naturally occurring life, but the final frontier mentioned in the sources is us kind of creating it, artificial life and synthetic biology.
Yeah.
What's the cutting edge here?
Right, this is really pushing boundaries. Artificial life, or L-life, is essentially about simulating aspects of life. This could be through computer programs, robotics, or even biochemistry. It's about trying to understand life by building lifelike systems.
Learning by doing.
Precisely. And synthetic biology takes that a big step further. It's a newer field merging science and biological engineering. The goal here is really ambitious, to design and construct entirely new biological functions, parts, devices, and systems that don't exist in nature.
Building completely new biological things.
Exactly. Engineering biological systems, maybe to process information like computers or to manipulate chemicals, fabricate new materials, produce energy, provide food, even potentially enhance human health or clean up the environment.
So intentionally building new forms of life or life-like systems.
That's the aim. It truly pushes the boundaries of what we even mean by life.
Wow. What a journey. We've gone from that fundamental, seemingly simple question, what is life?
Mm-hmm.
And seen why it's actually so incredibly hard to define.
Mm-hmm.
We've looked at historical interpretations, life's incredible evolutionary path here on Earth, its astonishing adaptability finding niches in the most extreme environments.
And the classification systems we use to try and make sense of it all.
Right, down to its very molecular building blocks. CHNOPS, DNA, cells.
And then looking outwards to the speculative but really exciting possibilities of life beyond Earth.
And inwards, almost, to the future of life engineered by us.
It covers a lot of ground.
It really does. And this deep dive was designed for you, the curious listener, to grapple with these big ideas.
So, as you reflect on all these different definitions, these manifestations of life, maybe consider, how does your understanding of life and maybe your place within this huge biosphere, how does that shift?
Yeah.
What new questions does this understanding spark in you about existence or purpose or the future of life, both the natural kind and maybe the artificial kind too?
Perhaps you'll find yourself noticing those 7 pillars more in the life around you day to day. Or maybe pondering the deeper implications of synthetic biology and where that might lead. The deep dive continues, really, within you.